Hi friends, welcome back to the Graceville Classroom. If you're new here, tap follow or subscribe so you never miss an episode. And if you've been listening for a while, a quick rating or review really helps more parents and teachers find this show. I know it's been a minute since I dropped a new episode back in mid-September after we returned from the vault, but I promise I've been working hard behind the scenes on something special, more on that soon, and today feels like the perfect bridge. In that last episode, we talked about those stored up ideas and dreams God's placed in us, just waiting to be unlocked. Well, today, we're opening that vault a little wider to unlock something every parent and teacher wrestles with: why kids tune out and how to bring them back. You know those moments when learning finally clicks? When a child's eyes light up and they go, "Ooh, I get it, it's magical." But that moment, it isn't luck. It happens when engagement meets understanding. The phrase engagement equals understanding has become a theme around here, because when we truly engage our kids, we reach them in ways that transform learning. So today, we're diving into why kids tune out in the first place, what's going on underneath the surface, and simple ways to bring back that spark of engagement in a way that's rooted in grace and grounded in how God uniquely designed every learner. And let's be honest here. Every parent, teacher, homeschool mom, we've all been there. You're explaining something for the 10th time, and they're just not getting it. Maybe you start to feel frustrated. Maybe they do too. And eventually both of you walk away feeling defeated. But here's the truth. It's not because they can't learn. It's usually because the way we're teaching doesn't match the way they learn. We've been conditioned to focus on what to teach, the lesson, the content, the curriculum, the plan, instead of how kids actually process and retain information. And when that connection is missing, engagement fades. You know, I've talked before about my early years teaching kindergarten, and it's something that's stayed with me ever since. I had a group of little ones who were really struggling with reading and phonics. No matter how many times we went over the letters or practiced blending sounds, it just wasn't clicking. I remember sitting at my desk one afternoon feeling so frustrated, not at the kids, but at myself, because deep down I knew they were capable. I just hadn't found the right way to teach them yet. And that's where I started to realize what I now call the missing link. When I brought in literacy links, something visual, hands-on, and multisensory, everything changed. Suddenly they were engaged. They were touching, seeing, saying, and hearing all at once, and their eyes lit up. Within weeks, I started to see progress that felt miraculous. By the end of the year, every single one of my students could read. Every single one. And that moment cemented something in me. Kids don't tune out because they can't learn. They tune out because we haven't connected with how they learn yet. And that's the heart of what we're talking about today. That experience completely changed how I saw teaching, and honestly, how I saw kids. Because it wasn't that they suddenly became capable. They were capable all along. The only thing that changed was how I connected with them. And that's where I first started to understand this truth that's shaped so much of what I do today. A phrase I first heard from Tony Robbins: engagement equals understanding. When I heard that, it stopped me in my tracks because it put words to what I've already been seeing happening right there in my classroom. When kids are engaged, when their brains and hearts are both in it, they don't just remember information, they actually understand it. And when kids are engaged, when learning feels meaningful, hands-on, or even just fun, their brains literally open up in incredible ways. Engagement isn't about entertainment, it's about connection. It's about meeting learners where they are, visually, audibly, kinesthetically, emotionally, and helping them connect the dots in a way that makes sense to them. Because here's what I've learned after years of teaching, homeschooling, and working with all kinds of learners. Every child can learn, but not every child learns the same way. Think about your own children or the kids you work with. No two are exactly alike, right? They can have the same parents, grow up in the same home, and even share the same routines, yet they process information completely differently. So why do we so often try to teach them all the same way? The question keeps me coming back to engagement, because when we engage a child in the way they learn best, when we tap into how God uniquely wired their brain, we unlock something far deeper than academics. We unlock confidence. We unlock joy. We unlock understanding. And I saw this so clearly just a few weeks ago during our homeschool co-op. We were studying the African elephant ecosystem. And during my mini lesson, I noticed one child starting to tune out. Eyes were wandering, digging through their backpack, shoulders kind of slumped over. Clearly, they were done listening to my story. But as soon as I had the kids stand up and sing a little rhyming song about elephants, repeating some of the key facts we had just learned in my mini lesson, everything changed. That same child who had been disengaged lit up. They were smiling, moving, and even quietly singing parts of the song to themselves later while working on their diorama. That's the power of engagement. It connects what we teach to how a child learns. And when those two meet, understanding happens. And I recently saw this play out again with a homeschool friend of mine. She's been struggling with one of her learners, a child who loves to move and who was getting frustrated with traditional lessons. She ended up hiring a tutor for some extra support. And when they talked, the tutor explained that every single strategy she was using was movement and kinesthetic based. Jumping to sounds, moving while counting, acting things out, and guess what? He was thriving. That conversation was such a light bulb moment for my friend. She realized that movement wasn't a distraction. It was the key to unlocking his learning. And now she's working on intentionally building more hands-on movement-based learning into their days. And she said it's already made such a difference. Her learner is happier, they're both less frustrated, and learning finally feels fun again. And that's what happens when we stop trying to make learning fit one mold, and instead let it move the way each child was created to be. And that's really the beauty of it. When we teach or parent with that perspective, we realize God never asked us to make learning perfect. He just asked us to be present, to notice, to connect, and to lead with grace. And that brings me to one more story. When I first started homeschooling in the middle of last year, yes, the middle of the school year, I still thought school had to look a certain way. Now look, I had been teaching in the regular education system for years. I thought it had to be sitting at a kitchen table or on the couch just working through workbooks or worksheets and checking off boxes. If you know me, you know I love a good to-do list. And trying to make our homeschooling look and feel like a traditional classroom. Let me tell you, that was a huge mistake. It didn't take long to see the frustration building for both of us. And I knew this just isn't working. So I sat, I prayed, I brainstormed, I got creative. I started thinking back to those early years of teaching when I had to change how I was teaching to connect with some of my other learners. And so I had to try things that felt more natural, more us. We started doing hands-on projects, incorporating movement, and keeping my mini lessons truly mini. I had to add visuals, songs, and opportunities for her to explore, rather than just sit still and fill in blanks. And let me tell you, everything changed. Her engagement went up, her frustration went down, and her understanding and love of learning began to grow right before my eyes. Her love of learning had been gone for quite a while, and it was such joy to see that finally come back. And that's when I realized learning doesn't always have to look like a workbook to count. It just has to connect. Now, don't get me wrong. There are some great resources out there and some great worksheets and some great workbooks. But now I have the flexibility to pick and choose and take that information and implement it how I think will work best for her. And when we meet kids the way God uniquely designed them to be, we're not just helping them succeed, we're helping them thrive. And that experience really changed everything for me, not just as a homeschool mom, but as an educator, a mentor, and honestly as a believer. Because once I saw how engagement could transform learning, how it could take frustration and turn it into confidence, I couldn't unsee it. I started noticing it everywhere, in my co-op, in conversations with teachers, even in parents who are just trying to make homework time a little less stressful. And that's what's been stirring in my heart lately, to take all of these lessons, stories, and strategies and bring them together in one place. Something that helps you reach every learner. Whether you're teaching in a classroom, homeschooling, or simply helping your child thrive at home. It's something I've been quietly building behind the scenes, and I cannot wait to share more about it soon. So while I'm beyond excited to share more about what's coming, I don't want you to wait for the next big thing to start seeing change. The truth is, you can begin right now, just like I did in the middle of our homeschool journey, right where you're at now with the kids you already have in front of you. Because every small moment of connection matters. Every time you pause to notice what lights your child up, what brings them frustration. Every time you shift your approach just a little to meet them where they learn best, you're already transforming the way they experience learning. So here's what I want you to try this week. Do they light up when they move around? Do they zone out when you're talking? Do they doodle while you're reading? Do they remember things better when they see it written out? Do they need a rhyme or movement to remember certain facts? Do they love to talk it through or teach it back to you? Write it down. Pray about it. Ask God to show you one small way you can teach or explain something differently this week in a way that fits how they learn best. And if you haven't yet, please give them the Learning Styles quiz to find out how they learn best. That's the first step. I created one for older learners already. I shared it in a prior episode, and I'm currently working on one for our younger learners too. But even before you take the quiz, here's something I've noticed again and again and again. The missing piece I typically see in both home and classroom learning is, you're right, movement and hands-on learning. So this week, look for little ways to add that in. Even if it's as simple as standing up to act something out, tapping out spelling words, or using objects around the house to show a math concept. It's amazing what happens when we shift from fixing to understanding, because when we do, learning doesn't just click, it comes alive. So friends, if today's episode encouraged you, I would love to hear from you. Take a moment to screenshot this episode, share it in your stories, tag me, share this episode with somebody who could benefit from it. Because when we share ideas like this, we start changing the way kids experience learning. And kids deserve to love how they learn. And if you haven't already, be sure to follow or subscribe to the Grace-Filled Classroom podcast so you don't miss what's coming next. I've got something really special in the works that's going to help you make learning click for every child. So thank you so much for spending this time with me today. And remember, learning is a process, not a performance. And grace is the key that keeps it growing. And give yourself grace too. Until next time, friends, may God guide you with wisdom and fill your days with peace. I'll see you next time in the Grace-Filled Classroom.